All right, today we're diving into what is, without a doubt, one of the most emotionally raw and powerful books in the entire Bible, the Book of Lamentations. It's really this incredible journey through 5 chapters, and it takes us from the absolute ashes of devastation all the way to this fragile but really profound glimmer of hope. So let's get right into it.
So here's our game plan. We're going to follow the book's own emotional roller coaster, really. We'll start in the deep, deep grief of Jerusalem, then we'll figure out why it all fell apart. After that, we hit this amazing turning point of hope, and then we'll face the full scale of the destruction before we wrap things up with this powerful prayer for a fresh start.
Okay, first things first, we've got to get a handle on this word lament. Because, this isn't just about being sad. In the ancient world, a lament was something much bigger. It was this structured, super passionate, and often very public way of expressing grief. And honestly, the Book of Lamentations, it's like the ultimate masterclass in how to do it. It shows us how you can cry out to God from the absolute depths of pain. And that sets the stage for everything we're about to see.
Wow, the book just throws us right into the deep end, doesn't it? It opens with this incredibly haunting image. We're immediately in the aftermath of a total catastrophe. The writer does something brilliant here. They use personification to paint a picture of the entire city of Jerusalem as this grieving widow, totally abandoned and all alone. And that one single image of solitude, it just perfectly captures this profound sense of loss that's going to echo through the entire book.
So, let's get into chapter 1. This whole chapter just dives headfirst into the sorrow of this desolate city. Think of it like one long funeral poem, an elegy. But what's absolutely fascinating from a literary standpoint is the structure. Get this, the first 4 chapters are actually acrostics. That means each verse starts with the next letter of the 22-letter Hebrew alphabet. So even in this massive outpouring of grief, there's this incredibly detailed and intentional structure holding it all together. How amazing is that?
And what the writer does here is just brutal. They keep hammering this contrast between Jerusalem's amazing past and its devastating present. One minute she's a princess among the provinces, and the next she's a widow, basically a slave. She used to be full of people, now her gates are desolate. This constant back and forth, it's designed to make you, the reader, feel the absolute crushing weight of everything that's been lost. So as we go through this chapter, 2 big themes really start to stand out. First, obviously, is just this overwhelming grief, but the second one, and this is absolutely crucial, is an admission of guilt. The suffering isn't just seen as some random terrible event. The writer actually confesses, "The Lord is righteous, for I have rebelled." And this ties right back into that biblical idea of a covenant, right? The idea that disobedience has real consequences. And it's that painful admission that really fuels the desperate cry for mercy we see at the end of the chapter. Okay, so that admission of rebellion, it leads us straight into chapter 2, and here the focus just shifts dramatically. Think of it like this. If chapter 1 was all about describing what happened, all that sorrow, then chapter 2 is all about explaining why it happened. It's like the curtain gets pulled back and we see this harsh, difficult reality of what the author understands to be divine judgment. And the language here is, wow, it's meant to be shocking. Listen to this. The Lord, the one who is supposed to be their protector, is described as an enemy. He's not just standing by watching this happen. The text says he is the active agent of all this destruction. Now, that creates some serious theological tension, and it's a really difficult concept to wrestle with, but it is absolutely central to understanding this entire book.
And this judgment is portrayed as just total. Nothing is spared. The temple, the very heart of their worship, gone. The leaders, both political and spiritual, exiled. The law itself, it's no more. And what's maybe the most heartbreaking part? The text makes it so clear that the innocent are suffering right alongside the guilty. It's this all-encompassing ruin that leads to this urgent, desperate cry for repentance.
So, after 2 chapters of just relentless, soul-crushing despair, we get to chapter 3. And this, my friends, is the structural and thematic heart of the whole book. For one thing, it's a triple acrostic. That means 3 verses for each letter of the Hebrew alphabet. It's like the author is screaming, "Pay attention, this is important." And thematically, we see this huge shift. We go from the collective we of the city to the really personal I of one person who seems to be carrying the suffering of the whole nation. And this chapter starts by just dragging us down to the absolute bottom. The speaker feels trapped in darkness. You can almost feel it. His bones feel broken. His soul is just filled with bitterness. This is rock bottom. It's as low as it gets. He feels so totally abandoned that he actually says, "My strength and my hope is perished from the Lord."
Can you even imagine feeling that way? But then, right there, at the absolute lowest point, after he's poured out every last drop of his despair, something incredible happens. And it's not like his circumstances change. Not at all. It's a shift inside his own mind. This right here, this is the turning point for the entire book. Smack in the middle of all that pain, the writer makes a conscious choice. He chooses to remember something else, the character of God. He says that even with all this judgment, the only reason they haven't been completely wiped out is because of God's mercy and compassion. And to say that those mercies are new every morning when you're at rock bottom, that is just a staggering, incredible statement of faith. So what can we take away from this? The lessons here are just timeless. It teaches us that hope isn't about not suffering. It's about a choice you make while you're suffering. It reminds us that God's faithfulness can be like an anchor when everything else in your life is just falling apart. And it totally reframes the idea of waiting on God. It's not about just sitting there helplessly. It's an active, hopeful expression of faith.
All right, so with that newfound hope as a kind of anchor, the narrator can now actually bear to look again at just how bad things are. And that brings us to chapter 4. This chapter goes back to that theme of painful contrast we saw earlier. But believe it or not, this time the details are even more graphic and heartbreaking. So the chapter kicks off by talking about this massive devaluation of what used to be the most precious thing, the people. The people of Jerusalem, who were once seen as being comparable to fine gold, are now treated like cheap, disposable clay pots. Just imagine that. It's such a powerful metaphor for their complete and total loss of status, value, and dignity.
And here, the horrific physical toll of the famine and the siege is just laid bare for everyone to see. We're talking about the elite, the people who were once purer than snow and dressed in scarlet. Now, they're completely unrecognizable. Their faces are blacker than a coal, and they're literally searching through trash heaps, embracing dunghills just to survive. The imagery is meant to be brutal, to force us to confront the stark reality of what they were going through.
And at this point, the blame gets very specific. It's not like in chapter 1 where it was a general confession of sin. Oh no, this chapter explicitly calls out the corrupt spiritual leadership, the prophets and the priests, as the direct cause of this whole mess. It says their sins led to God's fury being poured out. But there is this tiny glimmer of justice at the end, a promise that even though Judah's punishment is done, their enemies, specifically Edom, they'll get what's coming to them too. And that brings us to the final chapter, chapter 5. And once again, we see a shift. That complex acrostic poetry we saw in the first 4 chapters, it's gone. In its place is a much more direct community prayer. This isn't just one person's voice anymore. This is a collective cry to God from all the survivors. In this last appeal, it's like the people are laying out their case before God. They're just asking him to remember, to just look at what's happened to them. They list out all their grievances. Our inheritance is gone, we're like orphans, we're paying the price for our ancestors' sins, and all our joy, it's gone, replaced by mourning. It's just this raw, totally unflinching list of their miserable reality. But even in this absolutely desolate state, their prayer is still anchored in a deep truth. It's a lot like that personal turning point back in chapter 3. The community's hope is built on this unshakable foundation. Their suffering might feel huge, but it's temporary. God's reign, on the other hand, they declare that it's eternal. His throne hasn't been knocked over. And that profound contrast is the very bedrock of their final plea.
And this is where the book leaves us. There's no neat, tidy resolution. No happily ever after. Instead, we're left with this haunting, unresolved question. They cry out for renewal, begging God, turn us back to you. But the very last words just hang in the air, filled with this terrifying possibility. Or have you utterly rejected us? It's such a powerful ending because it forces you to just sit in that tension between hope and fear. And maybe that's the point. It reminds us that faith isn't always about having all the answers. Sometimes it's just about having the courage to cry out for a new beginning, even when you have no idea what the future holds.